Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. I'm your host, Karim Rafa, and I'm joined again with Dr. CJ Meadows, the director of I2E, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center of SP Jain School of Global Management. And welcome back, CJ.
Hi, it's wonderful to be here with you again.
Now, in the times of COVID, I would like to talk to you today about the environmental impacts and what we've been seeing. I think you've had the chance to share some incredible footage of, was it tigers in a natural reserve just roasting in the sun?
Wildlife all over the world are coming back to places that we've chased them out of, be it dolphins that have returned to the Bosphorus, some of the most polluted waterways in the world, now clean enough apparently for dolphins, or be it tigers. We've got some recent footage from the Tiger Center of 4 of them lying around in the road saying, "Where are all the tourists?"
So, I mean, these are beautiful examples of what happens when the world becomes quieter and less crowded, but there are much bigger implications with the environment, and pollution levels are going down. And can you tell us a bit more?
We've got to ask ourselves a couple of questions. Number one, are we going to take over those areas that the wildlife has come back to and make it uninhabitable for them again? And at what point in time does our environment become uninhabitable for us?
Greenhouse gases and the reduction in carbon emissions are a major factor. I mean, satellite imagery from China during the initial COVID shutdown was phenomenal. But we already have seen things powering back up. Is this clean slate not the opportunity for us all to start in a greener way?
You know, we do have an opportunity to start back up in a greener way, but the temptation is going to be to start with our existing factories and our existing transportation systems. And now that we've been stockpiling oil that we haven't been able to use, temptation is going to be just to use that. I do see a bright light, though, in terms of the future of work and digital transformation of companies. If companies wake up to the fact that we have remained productive, many of us, despite working from home, what's going to happen to our transportation infrastructures?
Less transportation and less reliance on existing energy sources, which are inherently inefficient. Where do you see green energy popping up in all of this?
One opportunity is to replace our old ways of doing things with something that is eco-friendly, that doesn't create other problems. Now, another opportunity is for the base of the pyramid, the 4 billion consumers all over the world who are also producers and yet don't have infrastructures. Can we put in new infrastructures that are clean and help them do business in a digital, democratized way that is also less damaging?
Moving to a fully digital way of doing business, everyone from home, also would lead us to giving up, so commuting to work, but also office spaces, right?
Well, and also look at things like digital banking. Your banking can be done on a phone. What about consumers that don't have banks at all in their location? You know, mobile phones have greater penetration around the world than clean water. So what is it you can do with a mobile phone instead of having damaging infrastructures? How about education? Between 2 and 300 million children around the world don't have any form of a school. Isn't there some way to put some sort of a school on a mobile phone? Because every village has now at least one.
Construction and new houses or buildings built have always been a very reliable indicator of a country's economic health. China building ghost cities in the middle of nowhere with no potential tenants, or be it Dubai also building towers for the potential increase in future real estate prices, all on one hand create jobs. They also increase the asset holding of that country or that region, but also increase the number of taxes that a country can collect later on. What would we be relying on as an economic activity and indicator to boost that?
The old solution was to put in infrastructures and eco-unfriendly factories and move everyone into a city. But can we provide technological and scientific advances that allow people to remain in their villages and yet conduct economic activity.
We're joined now by Ong Kiat, Director at Uniflow Power Singapore. He's also now a consultant in low carbon emission energies and bioenergy. Ong Kiat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Now, as we've all seen, we've discussed with CJ previously, the world seems to be healing itself to some extent. We're seeing wildlife come back to bigger cities. Would now, in your opinion, be a good time for greener investments and greener energy development?
Yes, indeed, actually, it goes to show us, what can happen when we shift suddenly. In one sense, you can see that this is a look into the future when we, stop trying to be interfering with nature.
It's an opportunity. Why didn't we do this before or force this before? What were the economic reasons for that?
I think there's been too many self-interest in it, and the fact, quite frankly, is while it's not broken, so why should we change it?
If you're a startup, you're not tempted to, although having written off some sort of infrastructure, some sort of factory with old, eco-unfriendly technologies, even if it's written off, bigger companies that have already put them in are tempted to use those technologies, those factories anyway. If you're setting up something new, then why not go for the eco-friendly opportunity, especially since the economics have changed today from 10 or 20 years ago.
It would be an interesting time now to go away from a trickle-down sort of culture to maybe a mass pushing upwards. I mean, clean states do give you that opportunity to no longer follow what the big guys are doing and start something new from maybe lower.
There are many companies and small ones that actually are trying to turn the linear economy into the circularity economy. So circularity becomes very important because we have been using resources of 3 or 4 Earths. So it's time that we actually focus on how can we reuse. For example, in urban, in cities, we can do what is commonly known as urban mining. There are a lot of resources around us that we don't have to exploit, the earth.
What has happened to the stockpiling of oil while it hasn't been used during COVID with the transportation shutdown? Are the dirty energy sources going to be so cheap when the economy opens up again that all the startups and all the corporates are going to want to use that?
If oil went back to whether it's 50 or 100 or 150 or even 200, who is to say that it will not drop down again? Can economies withstand such a shock again? The main thing is it tells us we have to prepare alternative energy generation systems, not just rely on the same old system for the last 200 years.
We've talked about data in the past, but that's not really something you can rely on in terms of mining. What do you think the next resource will be that we can rely on?
We have seen the growth of clean and renewable energy, and also maybe the growth of mini grids, alternative grids. So there's got to be some form of decentralization.
Instead of putting up a big power plant, could we put up micro power plants that use natural materials? This has already been being done. Can we do that with energy? We have the technologies, we're just not using them.
So it may be that we need some kind of internalization, but we need to emphasize more on localization to build up internal resources, because resources that are within the country, you can mobilize faster.
COVID has had all of us in confinement dealing with the way we consume things in a very different way. But the logistics behind this consumerism haven't really changed that much and haven't become that much more green. What do you think the future is in that space?
Well, we have to develop ways to look at how do we turn the current linear system, the linear economy, into a circular economy. That means things have to go back to the manufacturer. In Singapore and many other places, we can't send it back because there is no system to take back. And even when they take back, they don't know how to treat. So this is a fundamental problem because the reverse logistics in many places is just a path. It's not even a highway.
Ginkat, you mentioned government needing to take the lead, and with electrification, yes, that did occur. They took the lead in putting up the infrastructures. But now in so many locations, you've got private electric companies and electrical infrastructures. Is there some way to move this all forward without involving government?
I think government should remain to be, one is obviously the regulator. It has to offer incentives, that people are saying, well, I think it's worthwhile, I will take the risk. Every venture carries a risk. And let's face it, if you're going to be the first, you're taking a much higher risk. But if you do it, then in one sense, you're opening the market. And then the other 2 or 3 other people behind you are going to get a free ride. All right? So that's not really nice and fair. This kind of stuff cannot be done really by the private sector without government directing it.
Gin Kiat, thank you so much for dialing in with CJ and I today. Really appreciate your insight.
All right, thank you very much.
It was very interesting what Gin Kiat mentioned with the birth of these microgrids and the move that a larger and more established infrastructure, say in a first world country, might have versus a third world country that might actually have an advantage now. How do you think third world countries will fare versus first world countries?
I think we've all heard the social justice arguments of emerging economies saying, well, hey, previous worlds, you've had a chance to muck up the environment and put in all sorts of factories and infrastructures that have had a degrading effect on the entire world. We're the next in line to develop, and you're going to deprive us of our chance to develop. The key to the whole argument is that technology is not static. The economics of new technologies, including environmental sustainability type technologies, changes all the time. And there are even new digital technologies with microcellular networks, with cloud, with even just the mobile phone, which change the economics of your infrastructure and what you want to do with it. So don't make the same stupid mistakes as in the past. Make new mistakes with better technology.
CJ, thank you so much for coming on today. It's always a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon for more COVID-related discussions.